Hello and welcome to the Franchise Tag Podcast with me, your host, Freddie Hall. I hope you're doing all okay out there. Welcome back to my co-host, Adam. And we're also joined by Elvin Ryan, who is going to be talking to us about what some may say was the strangest pick in the NFL draft. I mean, it's not as strange as Jordan Love being picked by the Green Bay Packers, Adam. I mean, we've not talked about it for a lot of episodes, Adam, so I had to give you a little dig in there about the Green Bay
Give
Packers.
Give it a rest.
But at 28, the Saints, who took defensive end Payton Turner. We're going to be talking all about that, talking a bit about New Orleans Saints. But of course, I'll introduce Elvin Ryan, who is a news correspondent and expert ranker for Fantasy Pros, contributor for Team Rise and Fall. Elvin, I hope you're doing all okay. We are now just a very short time away from the NFL start. It's been a long summer, my friend. How are you feeling about the season?
It has, man. I'm pumped. This is the first time, man, since I was a teenager that we're starting the season without Drew Brees. So it's extremely different. I have like butterflies in my stomach. Like I'm a little nervous, but I'm excited, you know.
I'd be nervous as well without Drew Brees and the Tom Brady in my division. But, you know, I'm just playing devil's advocate here, Elvin. I'm just playing devil's advocate. But first, we'll talk about, obviously, your pick at 28, Payton Turner. A surprising pick to a lot of people. A lot of people who probably never heard of Payton Turner coming out of Houston, 22 years old, originally from Texas. His name gets called out on the night, Elvin. I don't know how au fait you are with the college stuff and everything like that, but he gets called out. Everyone's a little bit, whoa, okay, they're going with Payton Turner. Who is this guy? What was your reaction on the night to it all?
Man, whenever you've been, I guess, following Mickey Loomis for as long as I have, it's kind of hard to be shocked. Like you're kind of always looking at the front door, and then here he comes busting in through the back door. We've seen this with Davenport a few years ago with that trade to the Packers. But I wasn't completely shocked. I knew that the Saints hadn't gone with an offensive playmaker like everyone had mocked, but once since 2008 and twice since 2011. So I knew we were either going offensive line or a defensive playmaker. That's what Mickey does. Those are the safe plays. Then he has a high hit rate later on in the rounds. Coming from like a need, we had lost Trey Hendrickson, lost Sheldon Rankins, Onyemata's facing suspension. It was definitely a need to get someone as versatile as Turner, 6'6", 270 pounds, high motor playmaker. So I wouldn't say that I was shocked out. I guess I was just like, oh, there's Mickey.
How did you watch any of his tape at all? You know, during his time in Houston. I mean, is there anything that impressed you about him, or anything that you're excited about him coming into the team?
No, I mean, prior to us drafting him, I hadn't watched him really at all. I mean, once we draft him, I go back and I watch all the guys that we draft. You know, pretty passionate Saints fan. I think, like I said, I mentioned earlier, he's extremely versatile. Like he'll be able to, he can line up over the center, or he can stand up as an end. You know what I'm saying? And those are things that the Saints need. You pair him with someone like Cam Jordan and Davenport. I mean, he can wreak havoc. He did an incredible job at Houston. He had 115 tackles. 68 of those were solo. That's extremely difficult for defensive linemen. A lot of their tackles come together. So that means he's just getting back there faster than anyone. He's quicker off the line. I mean, he's just coming from a small school, and I think that's something that Mickey's like. So it didn't show any red flags or anything. I'm pretty excited about him.
Well, I think what people forget is there is a lot of very, very good NFL players out there that came from small schools. The one in particular in my mind is Khalil Mack in Buffalo, obviously, which if Payton Turner can be like Khalil Mack, I think you'll be a very happy Saints fan. How well do you think he will adapt into the NFL, given that he has a lot of veteran older people like Cameron Jordan, players like that, who he's going to be able to learn off, and of course a very experienced head coach in someone in Sean Payton. How much do you think he's going to learn off them guys and be able to adapt quickly into the NFL?
Yeah, I mean, he's going to have to lean on those guys. Cam's one of the best. He's top 5 in my eyes. I think Pro Football Focus has him somewhere around 7 or 8. But he came out of a bigger school out of California. Davenport just a couple of years ago was almost in a near identical situation. Now, we didn't trade up for Payton Turner, but we selected him, and it was kind of like the wow factor for the media and for fans watching. They were like, man, why are the Saints selecting this guy? So Davenport's kind of been in those shoes before where everyone's like waiting for him to be this bust. And I mean, Davenport kind of has been up to this extent, right? But I think Turner can learn a lot from this guy. He's extremely raw. That's the only thing I worry about. So he's going to have to listen to Cam and just follow what those guys say.
Now, I know we've spoken about, a lot of the positives, and also having them guys there is going to help him. I mean, do you feel that there's any weaknesses to his game or anything that you feel like the coaches are definitely going to need to look at and sort of improve in his game in order for him to be good in the NFL?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think he's a little too raw, and sometimes talent just rises. But in other cases, those positions like offensive line, defensive line, sometimes it doesn't matter. I mean, we saw Jadeveon Clowney, right? Like one of the most raw players ever coming out of South Carolina. And it took him years to live up to his draft capital. Like the trenches are a place where technique means so much. So I think it's gonna take a pretty good coach to get the best out of Turner. But outside of that, I mean, I don't like that he's banged up in camp right now. I don't think that's ever a good sign for a rookie whenever they spend as many days not practicing as he has. That only slows down the process of him making an immediate impact and living up to that first-round draft capital.
Do you think there is pressure on him then to live up to that first-round draft pick capital? Like, it is a pressure that all players get. And we've just come off recording the Buffalo Bills episode, actually talking about Gregory Rousseau, and we're saying about, is there that pressure on him to be immediately impact straight away? Because they're in a Super Bowl run, really. Their bubble is very much the here and now. I'd say the Saints is maybe not so much anymore, but without Drew Brees. But however, you are still going to be a contender and still a very decent team. But given he was a first-round pick, given that no one had really heard of him and really thought it was him as a first-round pick, do you think there is that? Do you think his expectations are a bit tampered with that? And is there that expectation and that pressure for him to be not an instant impact, but live up to that hype as a first-round pick?
I think so. I think anytime that a team selects a player that no one's really heard of, I think all eyes are on that guy. We wouldn't be talking about him today if it was someone like Joke, right? Because we expected him to go in that first round. So whenever you select someone like Payton Turner, I think all eyes are on him. Like, were the Saints geniuses? Were they morons? So I think a lot of eyes are on him. I think he does have to live up to that.
What do you think that the Saints saw in him? What do you think was the reason that they went for him? Because, as we've all said, it is kind of a little bit of a surprise pick. But was there anything in particular? Or do you think it was more of a positional need kind of pick?
Yeah, I mean, losing someone like Trey Hendricks, who led all defensive ends in sacks, that's tough. So maybe Sean Payton and Mickey were biting on the bit a little bit, like, man, we have to find the next Hendrickson, right? And maybe they reached a little, maybe they could have waited on Turner to come back to him in the second. Who knows if he would have been there? Those are kind of ifs, ands, and buts. But I think filling that void opposite of Cam Jordan, knowing that, hey, look, Drew's gone. Maybe the window's pretty much all but closed. Like, you have to go fill those voids that got you to where you were last year whenever you won the NFC South. So, I don't know.
Is this a little bit about, because obviously with Drew Brees gone, it does feel like he was the be-all and end-all of New Orleans Saints football, and rightly so. He's been such a legend of the game. He's a Hall of Famer for you guys. Now that he's gone, we're picking players that we're maybe taking risks on and things like that. Is there a little bit of a moment now where you say about Mickey Loomis taking them chances on players? Is this going to be a bit of an experimental period for the Saints? You've got a quarterback thing going on with his Jameis Winston, our guy. I know Taysom Hill, some people are saying he might be the guy, doubtful in my minds. But is there maybe a little bit of an experimental thing here going on with the Saints where it's like, okay, well, we've had our Super Bowl role. Let's do some little bits and bobs that we can do to maybe see if we can get these diamonds in the rough. We can get these players who people don't expect much of to be these phenomenal talents. And then when we get the quarterback that we know wants to be our quarterback, we're then going to have a team full of guys that we spent little capital on maybe. I know first round pick, but little capital and we've got these diamonds in the rough who have really came to the forefront. Do you think there is that sort of moment there for the Saints here?
I don't think Mickey's looking at it as an experiment. I mean, you look at Michael Thomas, who was a second-round pick, Alvin Kamara, third round. Like, these are guys that people kind of looked at us and were like, why are you selecting Alvin Kamara in the third? Now he's become one of the best backs in the league. I think the Saints have always kind of gone against the grain. I don't think they've ever looked at a mock draft and been like, oh, this is where we should go. Like, I think they stay as far away from what we call, like in the fantasy world, ADP as possible, and they just go off of their gut. They've had a lot more hits than misses. I mean, probably the most recent miss would be like Stephon Anthony out of Clemson. But I mean, everyone had him mocked really high, and he kind of fell to the Saints. So I don't think it's an experiment. It's just this is Mickey Loomis.
Do you feel that maybe the way forward would have been to go for a more offensive pick? I mean, not necessarily. I mean, wide receiver, obviously, given what's happened to Michael Thomas, you are a little bit short there now as well. But do you feel that would have been a better move?
Yeah, I think that the Saints possibly could have gone for the first time since 2011 after an offensive weapon. I think Bateman was their guy, and they had the eyes in. The Ravens sniped them the pick before. I kind of thought maybe they could have gone Elijah Moore, but I really think the Saints know what they have in Marquez Callaway. I've been hyping him up all off season. Been to camp. The guy's incredible. We saw it the first few snaps of the preseason, him against the Ravens first string. You know, I mean, he's kind of the real deal. But I do believe that in life after Brees, I mean, the last Brees has blown through New Orleans, that regardless whether it's Taysom or whether it's Jameis, these are two quarterbacks that they're not Hall of Famers. They're not future Hall of Famers. They're not Drew Brees. You have to help these guys. And I mean, we have Alvin Kamara. We have one of the deepest running back cores. We have a great offensive line. I think Trotman's pretty good, but we are kind of little skinny whenever it comes to the receiver. So I would have loved for them to go with someone like Elijah Moore. I think next offseason, if Callaway and Traquan don't really have a breakout here, that we will see the Saints go there in the first round.
We're giving a little bit of unfair coverage to your man Ian Book here. I mean, we've not even mentioned Ian Book. There's another guy. I know we're talking about Payton Turner, but we've got to give him a little bit of light here. I mean, he was, I don't know where he was, fourth round pick now. Is he a guy that maybe is being seen in the future here as well, coming out of this draft? Or it was that we'll see how it goes sort of thing?
I don't know. I mean, they've done this a few times. Sean has definitely drafted quite a few quarterbacks while Drew was there. Some of them as high as the second round, you know, preparing. They were all supposed to be that guy, and it never worked out. Sean always loves to say that the guy's already in the building, right? And whether that's Taysom or Winston, he stood true to his word. He said the guy was in the building. I know that he's kind of in love with Trevor Siemian. We didn't see as much of him the other night as we would. I know we've all already seen him. But Ian Book, I think he probably spends the rest of his career as like a backup. Best case scenario, maybe in 3 years, maybe he does get a chance to start. But I look at him a lot like a Taysom complex, not the fact that he can run or do the things that Taysom can do, but the fact that he's maybe just a winner and not as great of a quarterback, and teams don't like that. So I don't see it.
So who do you think will be the guy that's going to start? I mean, because there has been a lot of talk about Jameis and Taysom, which one is going to take it as the starting job? And, you know, they both have different attributes. I mean, which one would you go for?
I say give Taysom the chance. I mean, he was 3-1. We played some poor teams, but I don't think he did enough to lose the job. I mean, a lot of people think that Winston did better the other night, but if you watch it, I mean, the one interception that Taysom threw, Montgomery completely stopped on a drag route, allowed that to get picked off. Other than that, he goes 5 for 5 on that first drive. They're inside the 10 when Latavius Murray fumbles. Maybe Taysom caps that drive off with a touchdown. he's 5 for 5 with a TD whenever they pull him. Who knows, right? Everyone's kind of giving the edge to Winston because he has the history as a he's quarterback in the league. He's led the league in passing yards. He's led it in touchdowns. But I just say, like, hey, you went with Taysom last year. He got you to 3-1. Why not give him the start at the beginning of the year? And hey, if it doesn't work, the bye weeks in week 6, let's roll with Winston after that.
Now, it'd be stupid of us, Elvin, to get you on and not talk about fantasy football. I mean, let's agree, all 3 of us play it. Some are better than others. Some have won the league a couple of times. Some haven't won the league a couple of times. I've got Adam's actually joining my original league this year, which should be good fun for him. Traquan Smith, Marquez Callaway, they guys I should be looking at drafting. You need to really sell them to me here, man, because if I'm getting some deep rounds, I've got to beat these other suckers that I'm in the league with. And I'm not going to say that you won me the league or you lost me the league, but if I go for Traquan Smith and he doesn't perform, or Marquez Callaway and he doesn't perform, I'm going to be blaming you a lot, Elvin. I'm afraid I'm going to have to blame you. But what are the positives am I seeing from them this year?
Well, you're going to spend a whole lot higher draft capital on Traquan Smith, a guy that every single breakout article that you've read the last 3-4 years has said that this was the year, and he always let you down. And I think it's time to just leave him in that closet, let someone else deal with him. Marquez Callaway, you're going to be able to get him on your very last pick, unless I continue to hype him up on Twitter. I think he's the guy. I mean, he's so impressive. Like, his hands are so strong. I mean, he's Taysom's favorite weapon. I don't know. I haven't seen him play much with Winston. Even at camp, it kind of seems like Winston is going to Little Humphreys, and Taysom goes after Callaway. But Callaway has made the more impressive plays to me. Draft capital's less, bigger body. He's the real fill-in for Michael Thomas.
How do you feel that it's that the Saints are going to deal with Michael Thomas now? Because obviously, like, last year, missed a lot of time. Now he's picked up this injury, and it looks like, the whole surgery thing was a bit, when was it going to happen? No one seemed to know. I mean, do you feel that it's time to move on? Do you feel that it's reached that point with him?
No, I don't think so. I don't think that the Saints can afford it. We're living in salary cap hell because of Drew Brees and his refusal to take a team-friendly deal. I mean, at the end, he kind of helped us out a little here and there. But, I mean, Drew Brees made more money than anyone over the span of their career ever. So we're kind of living in the salary cap hell of that. If we were to go ahead and say, all right, Michael Thomas, we're trading you tomorrow, that just puts us in an even deeper hole, right? And Mickey, like, he doesn't want to admit it. So he takes out loans to pay off credit card debt. Then he takes out another loan to pay off that loan. And he loves to kick that can down the road. But eventually that time's going to come. And I think if we trade Thomas, regardless of what we get in return, because, I mean, I think we could get an absolute haul, he would destroy us financially. And I don't think the Saints would be contenders for another decade.
It's going to be weird with Drew Brees not being at the Saints. I mean, how much does that guy mean to the city of New Orleans? He came at you at a time that was so hard for the city of New Orleans. Obviously, just after Hurricane Katrina, a torrid time, and a time that New Orleans has risen from the flames from it, and is a great city full of great people. How truly sorely is he going to be missed in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium this year?
Yeah, man, I got goosebumps. I mean, Drew means everything to us. He really did come to us. My childhood house, we ended up moving to Pensacola my freshman year of high school because my mom's house completely slid off the slab. I mean, the roof was over the water was over the roof, about 14 foot of water. It was a madhouse, only miles away from where the levee broke in Araby, Louisiana. So whenever Drew came to us, I mean, football was always something that I kind of grasped onto. I remember watching the Raiders Saints preseason game in August of 2005. And I remember my mom, my aunts, and all of them, they're all crying and stuff. I didn't grasp the whole concept of it. I mean, still just that immature mind of a 14-year-old kid. But whenever we got home and we got to see all that, and then Drew kind of came in and rescued us, and he took us to places that we had never been. I mean, Pigs Fly, and it was incredible. We owe everything to Drew Brees, and I think we mean a lot to him as well, because, I mean, people had kind of written him off from his shoulder injury, but man, words can't describe what Drew Brees means to this city, me as a person, or I'm sure millions of others here in Louisiana.
Can I ask, do you feel that the team did everything possible for him in order to try and get another ring? I mean, because he only got the one, didn't he? I mean, do you feel that they really put everything into it for him?
Says the Green Bay Packer fan.
Man, that's tough. It's kind of hard to know what would have happened following that Super Bowl had the bounty gate not happen, right? The suspension of Sean Payton for an entire season. Drew Brees still threw for over 5,000 yards that season, right? What's he do if Sean Payton is in the house? The loss of probably one of our better defensive coordinators we've ever had. We lost him. Like, everyone was suspended. We lost key components on that defensive side for 4, 8, 16 games that season due to suspension. Who knows what happens in those 2 years following that if that doesn't happen. And then I think later on in Drew Brees' career, we had a resurgence where we had the team to beat. We watched ourselves lose in the divisional round to the 49ers on a last pass to Vernon Davis. Literally, I mean, with like 30 seconds left. We've all seen the Minnesota Miracle. Still makes me sick to my stomach. The no call. So I'm not going to say that I'm not going to put that on Mickey Loomis or Sean Payton for not doing enough to get him there. We were there. We were there 3 or 4 times later in Drew Brees' career, and just luck didn't swing our way. Maybe we sold it all for that one in 2010, and if that's the case, then I'm happy with it. But I wouldn't say that they didn't do enough.
Like I said a couple of questions ago, we've got a fantasy football man yourself. We've got to ask you a couple of questions on that to give us this edge to go and win our leagues and to go and do well out there. We also had, God, his name's just completely gone. Who was it, Adam? Who came on the fantasy football with Betts. Carolina? Matthew Betts. We also asked him the same sort of question. Who is a sleeper for you this year? Who should we be looking at? What player are you eyeing up in their mid-rounds that is going to get you a ton of points?
Well, I mean, I really like Darrell Henderson going in the 5th, as well as Mike Davis. I think those are 2 guys that are poised to see 15, 20 touches a game. They're going a little far behind, maybe because, I mean, Akers was the guy. People feel like Sean McVay doesn't really believe in Henderson because he drafted Akers, and that's fine and all. But who's taking touches from Henderson? Henderson is the guy. That's why they're not playing him in the preseason or anything like that. He's their guy. That's Sean McVay's workhorse this season. So he's got a path there. So for one of them to be drafted in the top 6, 7 running backs of the first round, and now another one's being drafted at running back 23, same offense, same scenario. I don't think the talent gap is that big from Akers to Henderson. I mean, I'm not saying that Henderson is right there with Akers, because Akers is definitely more talented. Don't think the gap is worth 4 or 5 rounds. And then Mike Davis, I mean, he's in a historically great offense. Last year, I think they were like kind of middle of the pack. But that's kind of an outlier year for the Falcons compared to what we've known the better half of a decade or so. So he's the guy on a high-octane offense. They're both going in the 5th. Why not?
Is there any sort of sleepers, anyone that's sort of low down that that you feel that can really make an impact on your team?
Yeah, I mean, I've mentioned Marquez Callaway. I won't leave a draft without him. He's my last pick. Love Dan Arnold as a late tight end. I mean, you can get him as your very last pick. I talked about Gronk and Jared Cook earlier. Those guys are going in the 13th round. They have huge upside. I mean, They're getting older. They're going to have some injuries along the way, but they're going to offer you huge upside, especially Cook in that offense over there. I don't believe in Mike Williams like a lot of people, so I think it's Keenan Allen, Austin Eckler, and then it'll be Jared Cook. They have the Saints offensive coordinator that we've had for quite a few years. Now we know what they like to do. They like to get the running backs the ball right out of the backfield, like we've fed it to Alvin Kamara, and then we like to force feed it to tight end. So I think Jared Cook could be in for a big year.
I had the exact same feeling about Jared Cook. I've just got this feeling about him that he's going to be really good there.
Can I just quickly ask? I mean, a lot of fantasy analysts sort of they prescribe by the idea of taking the running backs early. That there is a significant drop off once you start reaching players like Henderson in the 5th or something like that. I mean, is that something that you believe, or do you feel that actually you can still go out and get these really, really good wide receivers early on and still have a really good team?
Hey, yeah, I mean, last year in the Scott Fish Bowl 10, I finished, I think, 5th out of over 1,400. I went complete running back, like 0 RB. So I went just wide receiver. Darren Waller in the 4th. I didn't take my first running back until the 5th, right where Henderson and Davis are going. Last year, I was able to get Carson there, followed by like Hunt. I was able to sneak McKissick later on. Those guys, I mean, that ended up being 3 top 15 running backs at the end of the season. So it works out for you. Historically, I do think there's a huge drop off, but I think the position's growing. I think it's deeper than previous years. Maybe we say that every year, but I don't think that you should stick yourself in anything like, okay, first round I'm going running back, wide receiver, running back, wide receiver. Then I'm grabbing a tight end or a quarterback. Like, I think you really like crush yourself there whenever you do something like that. All my drafts I do based on my own rankings. I have quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, and even kickers in those. And I have them in tiers. And I try to get players in the highest tier possible. So if I'm picking in the 7th slot, I'm already down to the end of tier 2 running backs in most situations. So why am I going to take that guy and lose the competitive edge to my league mates and just take a lesser running back? I know I get to pick a little sooner in the 2nd, but why not just grab a Travis Kelce, who's guaranteed to be a top 3 tight end, right? And that position there gives you the biggest positional advantage of all other positions. It's a very shallow position. So it's deep for about, if you're looking for 8 to 10 points, it's an extremely deep position. But if you're looking for someone to give you meaningful 16 to 22 points a week, it really falls off after 3, and then you have a few hopefuls from about 4 to 7. So why not just take a Kelce there? I don't think you should lock yourself in.
Who were your 3 wide receivers then that you took before Darren Waller and Chris Carson?
Man.
Now I'm testing you.
I can't even remember. I could pull it up, send it to you after this.
Well, they were clearly good because you went a very long distance in the Scott Fish Bowl.
Yeah, no. So I think I went. I actually didn't go water. Now that I'm thinking about it, I went Dak, Kyler, Hopkins, Waller, and then Carson. That were my first
super flex.
Yeah, super flex. Yeah. So those are my top 5 picks. But
that is a strong top 5 picks, to be fair.
Yeah, it was.
We will just have one more question for you. We have had a comment on the Facebook where this is going live out, and it is for any good tips for a girlfriend desperately wanting to kick some fantasy ass this time. What would you be her advice for this day's advice for? Well, it seems like she's played fantasy before, but what tips advice would you give to them?
What tips? I already kind of said it. Don't lock yourself into any one strategy. Be ready to pivot. Think about it as if you're going to war and you draw it all out, and then hey, like these guys aren't where you thought they were, you got to kind of pivot. So do as many mock drafts as you can. Prepare yourself for where you think people are going to fall, but be ready to pivot. That's why you need to do as many as you can, to where you kind of know what you're going to do in this situation. If Zeke isn't here, if Alvin isn't here, where am I going? Where am I going with my next? So the more mock drafts you do, the better. That'd be my advice.
And the biggest thing you said, yes, fantasy football is a war. It's a battle zone. It's no retreat, no surrender, no free giveaways either. Elvin, I really appreciate you coming on, my man. Where can we find all your stuff online, your articles and things like that?
Yeah, now you can find me on Twitter at Elvin Ryan _FF. I'm on Team Rise and Fall. Haven't done too much work there, but I'm putting out stuff daily on Fantasy Pros.
Awesome. Well, Fantasy Pros is a fantastic site for all you fantasy footballs out there. Elvin, again, thank you so much for coming on. We are coming nearly to the end of the Future of the Franchise series. Been a long old summer. We've just had some preseason games. So NFL is now coursing for our veins. It's back, better than ever. Talking about fantasy football makes it even closer because our drafts are happening soon. You've probably been in drafts already. It's just one little step away before the NFL season starts again. And boy, are we excited. But until then, keep watching the Franchise Tag podcast. Keep sharing us, keep subscribing, liking our videos on YouTube and also on social media as well. And we'll see you all very soon.